All right. Well, shall we just go ahead and roll some music and go ahead and start?
Let's do that.
Well, happy 2024, everyone.
Heck yeah.
Welcome back to Shiftless. We're still around. Believe it or not.
Well, I mean, they can't fire us. We're not getting paid.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
yeah. We're not a negative on the balance sheet by any stretch of the imagination.
We can't get banned from the internet just for talking shit.
Actually, I think these days you can.
Oh, well, cancel me.
I hear you. And in the background today, and we're going to encourage him to jump in, even though he's pretending he doesn't want to. The one, the only, DJ Caleb.
DJ Caleb.
Good morning. Happy New Year.
All right.
It's like a full Roman stadium. So, much like we talked about, the prediction for 2024, what's the deal with Niner Bikes already? They're not closing up shop. They're just moving in with. They got acquired by Huffy.
I think they've always been a part of whatever. I don't know.
Well, not always, but this current iteration.
Yeah, they've been there for a while. They were held by the same company or whatever.
Oh,
and
really?
They shut down their
Colorado,
their Fort Collins warehouse and system and sent it all to where Huffy is.
Oh,
but
wow.
I think it's an inevitable.
I was trying to read the rest of that article. I couldn't find it.
Well, when did that come out? I missed that.
Last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, they halted their Fort Collins operations and moved it into their Huffy location, which I think is in
It's like,
California somewhere.
is it?
On the coast?
I was thinking it was Pennsylvania or something, but maybe
Maybe it is. Man, that was 2 holidays and 2 weeks ago.
Sure.
My dogs are barking at
Yeah.
something.
Do you need to check on it?
No.
Okay.
Just
Lucky's not happy.
That's Lucky?
Yeah.
Lucky
isn't it?
never barks.
Or maybe. Yeah, that's Lucky bark. I'm seeing his reflection through there. He's barking over there at something, but he's over here.
Probably the neighbors.
Gotcha.
It looks like it's Ohio.
Oh, okay. Pennsylvania, Ohio. That's kind of the same thing.
Same thing.
It's Yankeeville, right?
Yeah. They still think Yingling is a good beer.
There's lots of people down here that think that as well.
Well, they're wrong.
Brad is the
There's Lucky
purveyor.
right there.
Yeah, I know. He was over there
okay.
and he just came around.
Oh, okay.
Brad is the purveyor of proper opinions for all, and he'll let you know that.
Oh, I vehemently think that Yingling is a horseshit beer.
Okay.
Just because they've been doing it the longest doesn't mean they've been doing it correctly.
All I'm saying is different people have different taste buds for whatever reasons. You should know that.
I do.
You're a professional at this shit.
I do understand, and I appreciate that. But sometimes people are just wrong. And maybe I just had every Yingling I've had has just been skunky or bad.
I mean, for me, it's really in the realm of Dixie beer and Lone Star beer.
Oh, don't you dare talk
and
shit about Lone
Pabst
Star.
Blue Ribbon.
That's a good beer.
Okay, here we go.
Lone Star's a good beer.
The problem is
beer.
that Yingling, Yin Yang, it's
Yang.
not priced the same as Lone Star and Pabst Blue Ribbon. It's priced as a premium.
Down here it is. Up there, I believe it's not.
Okay.
And it's skunky nasty.
Yeah, I don't think
It
it's
reminds
good.
me of Heineken.
It's not that skunky.
It's not that skunky,
It's
but,
headed that
but I'm
direction.
saying you got to drink 3 of them before you're like, oh, okay.
This fine.
Well, no,
My
this
taste
is
buds
okay.
are fried. Now they taste good.
Yeah.
You guys are too young for this, but back when Heineken was a real beer, there was a difference. But
It's still a real beer.
it was a higher quality beer previously.
That's fair. That is
When my
fair.
dad was in college up here at UNT, or at the time North Texas State, do you know what the cheapest beer to buy up here was?
Pearl?
No, Shiner.
Oh.
He said that was the absolute. They would have to drive into Lake Dallas, and he said they could get it for, like,
I remember
cheap. It was not considered a good beer at the time.
I remember when I lived in Louisiana, we used to drive to Texas because they didn't have it in Louisiana. But we also used to drive to Colorado to get Fat Tire before they distributed outside of Colorado.
Nerds.
Yeah. Beer nerds. So, what do we talk about today?
I've got lots of stuff to talk about, and actually, let me see how this text message goes, and might even have more. I want to go back to this Niner conversation because that one's news to me, and I actually, for 5 minutes yesterday, tried to do some research for topics to talk about today, and I missed that one. I'm very disappointed.
Yeah, well, so
I saw that the Magic Carpet Ride had been discontinued, and they were blowing those frame sets out. It's like I was almost tempted to get one just for shits and giggles.
yeah.
The TLDR on it is that Niner filed for bankruptcy in 2018. Huffy bought them.
Yep. Yeah,
And
yeah,
now
the old Niner that Brad and I have.
That's
have
when
made.
Domaheddy left in, like, I think 16.
The article, it feels a little smoke and mirror, but basically they're saying it's just a massive restructuring, that they plan on still being around, but
It's a consolidation.
they're wiping the board, starting over, but they're still planning to.
I mean, is there any talk about bicycle lines or models or anything like that, or are they starting over from scratch with a brand new inventory, or nothing like that's been discussed in it? Or
This, from Niner standpoint, it doesn't seem like that they pivoted, no pun intended, during the pandemic for the unprecedented demand for product. They didn't stay active. I'm actually scrolling backwards on this to try to find.
Sure.
Well, I mean,
frame.
Niner was one of the first ones that I really remember. It was my first foray into Niners, 29ers, but obviously Karate Monkeys were around already. They were the first ones that I was aware of that they were just outsourcing everything to Taiwan, and they were just designing their frames and getting containers full of frames from overseas. But that's been their business model. So, but they did a lot of their big deal was just marketing. They marketed the shit out of it.
Sure. Well,
and proper branding.
there's a lot of parallels between them and Salsa.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I think you can see where some decisions from one brand work better than decisions from the other brand. And it doesn't mean they're wrong decisions. It just shows how tricky it is and how fickle the market is. Because Niner had a bunch of cool stuff, or at least cool concepts.
And cool paint too.
Cool paint.
Yeah.
I mean, that Niner rigid fork is still one of the best forks that was ever out.
It's pretty sexy.
No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And they definitely had some bikes themselves that if they hadn't have broken in half in a stiff wind would be considered classics right now.
They were fragile. Ask me how I know.
Well, they had the raciest of race single speeds, didn't they?
Yeah. I honestly lost track of how many Niner frames I went through, the Sir Nines. I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 7. And I just got tired of replacing them.
Sure.
And then they redesigned them. This was a big to-do on Facebook for a little bit, but they redesigned them to where you couldn't even get, even on a large frame, they put the bottle bosses in what I would consider the wrong place. And so you couldn't even get 2 bottles in at the same time. It was a complete stupidity thing. But anyways, I think it's just part of what's going to happen in the near future.
Maybe, maybe not. I think it's fair to assume that Niner's current iteration and current existence was somewhat,
It was already in the cards.
I don't know if it was in the cards, but it was fragile.
Yeah.
Very tenuous,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Well, I think, and I keep saying this, but Domaheddy left, I want to say it was 16. And I think that was kind of the beginning of the end. I think he saw the writing on the wall. And he was...
Well, that was different. That was different writing on the wall. There was no writing on the wall. It was a done deal at that point. They just stretched it out another 2 years in that iteration, trying to find somebody. No insider information, but that's just the way business works, sort of thing. Yeah, that 2 year period there, they were just trying to find somebody to pay something for some sort of asset, and probably the biggest asset was just the name itself and whatever inventory they still had, whatever containers were still coming over from Taiwan, etc.
Oh, I'm sorry. He left Niner in 2011. I'm on his LinkedIn page.
Okay. Now so that might be that would be more of the writing is on the wall, seeing that this is not a proper long-term fix.
He left there to go start his own thing, which Niner was just him and one other guy from what I understood.
Wasn't that his own thing to begin with, basically, for all intents and purposes?
That's what I thought, but then it says he did Damahedi Designs, which I remember that was a blip on the screen too. This says it's now become Viral Bikes, which is another brand I've not heard of. But he did Damahedi Designs for 4 years, and then Director of Carbon Development and Engineering at Argonaut Cycles, which I'm not familiar with.
I've heard of Argonaut.
I mean, I've heard of them, but that also shows that was a 4-year span between 18 and 22. And then, of course, he's been the Chief Executive Officer of Damahedi Consulting, LLC, for about 13 years. So, and then it says Viral Bikes is his current, but it says Bend, Oregon, whereas it says Damahedi Designs was out of Denver, Colorado, but then he's based out of Bentonville, Arkansas. So,
Let me correct myself. I said that Huffy acquired Niner, but it was actually United Wheels, which owns Huffy.
Yeah.
Vast, which is the magnesium frame company. Those are cool bikes.
Yeah, those are cool.
Batch and Buzz bicycles.
Yeah, Huffy's like Niner. It was just a purchased name, a purchased brand under that corporate umbrella. Wouldn't be surprised if the Niner name survives in some sort of pseudo department store bike, maybe. But who knows?
A la Mongoose. Because, Mongoose wasn't ever like a premium brand.
Back in the 70s and 80s and BMX days,
that's what I was going to say. They were carried in premium shops. It wasn't ever like a flagship, brand. But now it's almost sad to me.
It wasn't?
Most people don't remember, but it's sad to me to see them relegated to like Walmarts and Targets and shit.
If you were to cruise through our neighborhood in 1987, 88, all you would see is a yard full of Mongai?
Yeah, the Mongi. Mongai.
Well, I was a Diamondback guy. I had a Diamondback. Was my first BMX bike, my first real BMX bike.
What year was that?
Maybe 84-ish.
Great year.
See, I have to go all the way back to the 70s. And as far as I
don't remember the 70s.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Mongoose was the only label in my circle back then, but I wasn't a BMX guy, so maybe there was other stuff that I just wasn't aware of, sort of thing.
Like, and I wanted and this wasn't a premier brand either, but it was a Blue Max, and I think they sold them at I can't even remember what store it was. It was almost like a parts store, but I can't even remember now. But that's what, when I wanted a real bike, that's what I wanted. I ended up getting Diamondback 2 Silver Streak. It's a tits bike. And then my cousin got a Schwinn Predator at the same year. And BMX. It was that was the thing, But that's how I got into trail riding too. It was on a BMX bike.
Understood.
But there was we just rode our bikes wherever we went, and if we were on a trail, we were on a trail, and we were obviously single speed, so it was either you ride your bike or you walk your bike or you ride your bike.
Right. Right.
So,
what was the deal with the BMX bikes that started increasing their wheel size?
So that's just cruisers, and they had, I think they really originally did it just to have different race classes on the track, but I don't really know.
Well, about, I don't know, maybe 2 years after I'd graduated high school, I had the itch to ride a bike again, and I hadn't ridden one since, you get your license and you stop riding a bike as a kid. And there was a guy that I worked with that was a former BMX pro or whatever, and he's like, hey, I got an extra GT. I'll give it to you for $100 or whatever.
Yeah.
And sight unseen, he brought it, and it had. First thing I noticed was like, wow, those tires and wheels bigger. Anyway, that was my first foray back into.
Was it a 24 or 26?
I don't remember. I honestly, all I remember is these wheels are significantly larger than the last BMX bike that I owned.
BMX went through the same, and I'm not a BMX historian, so if anybody's yelling at us out there, forgive me, but
shiftlesslive@gmail.com.
but BMX went through the same kind of thing that mountain bikes have went through over the past, like, call it 15 years or so, where they were still trying to figure out geometry. And a lot of what happened is guys that were in my age bracket and Kevin's age bracket that grew up on BMX, they still wanted to be on a BMX bike. So they were trying to get guys that are 6 foot tall on a 20-inch wheel. And before they realized that they could just stretch the top tube out to like 24 inches and then slam the geometry a little bit and still play in the same field house, they started going 24 and 26. And so they were just building essentially an exploded version of the same frame, same geometry. Then it kind of took a step back and they started extending top tubes and doing all that.
It is strange to watch full-grown men ride BMX bikes that have these tiny wheels on it, and you would like there's got to be data that proves that wheel size on that type of terrain is the best rolling option.
You're talking about quick transitions, the way BMX tracks are designed.
Yeah.
The transition's really tight, so you want a smaller wheel.
Right.
If you have a bigger wheel, you're just
and it's harder to, I guess, the force to roll a larger wheel needs to be stronger than a shorter wheel. So otherwise you would get resistance coming on the down slopes.
It's about the whole shot. It's about the acceleration.
Right,
exactly. And it's crazy to see. I mean, BMX bikes have been through a lot of the same stuff mountain bikes have been through. Like there was a clipless phase, and now I don't know if pros are still on clipless.
Are they on disc brakes?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Man, I haven't followed BMX in so long. But then they went through suspension. Like Manitou made BMX forks, and Fox made BMX forks, and I mean I think all the suspension guys made BMX forks, and then they went to the same like carbon forks, and I mean it's been through the whole. It's all trickle down, So, but
and now it all goes on e-bikes.
Yeah. Less e-bike talk in 2024.
Are you sure?
I hope so.
Because I've got an interesting topic to talk about.
Talk to me.
Okay, well, you remember last week.
Oh, wait. Before, I need to do a little housekeeping.
Oh, okay. Go for it.
Shannon called me out. I guess in my haste, I just corrected him and said that he spelled decision wrong, and I guess he didn't. I need to go back and look. Again. He called me up and he goes, "Hey, fucker, how do you spell decision?"
I love that guy.
So I apologize if I was incorrect. I said, I'm just glad you went and checked it.
Hell yeah. And also says how quick he listened to the episode. Yeah. I haven't even listened to that episode yet.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
I just needed to take care of that before I.
But that's a perfect part of the segue because it goes back to that conversation last week. So we were talking about Shannon's bike, and we started going down the road of what about, or I did anyway. What about hardtail e-bikes? And yes, there are actually hardtail e-bikes. And the one that looked the most interesting to me was the Urbea Urun or some URRUN.
Fucking Spanish names.
Whatever that is.
Urbea. I'm looking at them up right
but
now.
It's my quick takeaway from it. Basically, it's the hardtail version of Shannon's bike is my guess. Okay. I mean, it's probably the same motor and probably component levels and things like that. If there's how much difference there is between the frames and the suspension, obviously it's a hardtail. Probably, I think it was 140 millimeter travel. Maybe it was 120. But anyway, I still personally like the idea of a hardtail MTB e-bike, lighter weight, potentially longer range. But that does work in that in-between realm where you can do gravel and single track and, again, back to our ramble-ish mentality of things. But I also agree that's not the meat and the potatoes of the e-bike market right now.
Right. Well, that's what I was saying. I wasn't denying the existence of hardtail e-bikes. I was just saying the majority, I'm talking 80% of mountain bikes.
Okay, and there we go. So now that's the next part of it. So the more I dig into it, it's like, Okay, in our realm of concept of cycling and our level of bikes that we're thinking about in this very, very niche world that we're in
Yeah.
from the cycling industry, probably the full suspension, enduro type, all trail type, EMTB, your $5,000 and up e-bike.
Yeah.
Yes, the dual suspension EMTB is probably the meat and potatoes of that market.
Oh, yeah.
But the e-bike market itself, that's still a very, very tiny part.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I was talking about just in the mountain bike market.
That's what I keep losing sight of. I think sometimes, at least myself, I get confused with the popularity of e-bikes from a global industry scale. I try to equate it to the stuff we're interested in.
Yeah.
But the reality is probably 90% of the e-bike market are $2,000 and less.
Yeah. Hybrids.
Garage bikes.
Yeah, cargo bikes.
Yeah, the
grocery getters.
Very, very dusted off 2 or 3 times a year type bike. And just like going back to it's the Walmart bikes that everybody has had in their garage for the past 40 years.
Next.
Exactly. And that they were spending $150 to $200 for at Walmart. Well, now they've got them to where they'll spend $1,000 to $2,000 on them. Is what's going on.
That's crazy. I was where was I? Oh, at Academy. I don't know, about a month before Christmas, and I was just. It always, because I've spent so much time in bike shops, and I've always ogled over, the new XTR derailleur,
Sure.
or the new XTR cranks, or that kind of stuff. And so it cracks me up, or it's a trip to me to go into a department store and look at not just their bikes, but also their bike accessories.
The accessories.
Their helmets and their bike packing bags and,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But they had an e-bike there. I want to say it was $499. And I'm like, dude, you can't even buy a decent suspension fork for that much, And here this bike is, somebody's going to take this thing home and they're going to probably ride the shit out of it. And all I can think is there's some 15-year-old kid back there that doesn't even know how to put together a bike that assembled it, And it's just an assumption on my part, but how many department store bikes have we seen with the fork on backwards or, the handlebars on upside down?
Okay. But here's my counter to that now, though. How many mail order bikes are we seeing where people are just completely putting them together incorrectly, at least for geometry and everything else? And
that's a fair point.
It's like I would rather have the 15-year-old kid that's putting together 20 bikes a week than some guy that doesn't even know how to properly turn a wrench that buys a $2,000, $3,000 mail order bike.
Yeah.
And
but speaking of mail order,
my butt hurts. Who's got a good seat cover for this?
Yeah. God. So January is the month of seat cover sales and large saddle sales.
Is it really?
I mean, I worked in bike shops for years, and every January, without fail, people make a New
I
Year's
guarantee you,
resolution.
we will have a large saddle conversation next week.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. I can't wait.
The only other legitimate hardtail.
We're all illegitimate here.
Trek has the Powerfly 4.
Yeah.
It comes in one option. You have different sizes. The bike has 3 color options, but Orbea, which I think makes beautiful bikes. Their bikes are always gorgeous. They have 6 options for that.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Urun.
Or however it's been. Orbea was the outlier on that. There's no
6
doubt.
options. I mean, 6 different.
120 millimeter.
Yeah, and the Powerfly is 80. It doesn't look quite. It's ugly, to be honest. It's pretty awful.
80 millimeter?
Yeah.
So it's like a cross country.
Orbea, if you want a long-term review on your bike, shiftlesslive@gmail.com, preferably 2. But a large to split between us.
Orbea has weird sizing, though. So a large, because they're, and I'm not disparaging anybody, but the Spanish are a smaller build.
Yeah.
So their large is more like
a
our
medium.
medium.
I rode Orbeas for several years. The Oeth or Oes, depending on what side of the pond.
Well, what side did Shannon get? Do we know?
I believe he got a large, and he told me flat out it was too small for me.
Okay.
He said it would be too small for you. He said it's almost too small for
Almost.
me.
Okay.
Yeah.
That
And I
those-
like a stretched out bike. So X or beta, extra large. I
Yeah.
know you've got I know you've got a spare extra large hanging around. We'll take it to Spinistry events and show it off.
Speaking of mail order, though, I'm not sure if I'm making this up, but I think I saw Specialized is doing direct to consumer now too, and I want to say Trek is following suit.
There's some, I don't want to misspeak on that, but there's some sort of way they're doing that. But supposedly, local shops still get credit when it's not a factory store. If there's a local shop that's a dealer for the brand, that's not a factory store, that somehow, and there's overlap, somehow they still get credit, or I'm not sure.
Well, that's how it is with Velo, and I don't know the specifics of this either, but Intense is direct to consumer, but they'll ship the bike to Gabe for him to assemble, and then he gets a spiff off of it. But
Right.
I think he just charges them full rack rate for an assembly.
you can buy the Powerfly right now online, and with Specialized, you have a choice. You can do in-store pickup, which they'll ship it to a bike shop.
Yeah.
You can do delivery, Specialized delivery, which, what is that?
They deliver it to your house.
Well, hand delivered by a Specialized expert. They'll build it there on site and get
wow.
it set up, or you can ship it directly.
I think I think it's a part. I don't know if it's more in the benefit of the bike company, which I'm inclined to think it is, but I think it's also in an effort to reduce overhead and inventory at the local bike shop level. Because
I'll go out on a limb and hey, we're just idiots. We don't know what we're talking about, but things I've heard, Trek, Giant, Specialized, basically their factory stores have essentially just become district and regional warehouses for all their excess inventory now. So that's, all these bike manufacturers are sitting on shitloads of inventory, literally years worth of inventory at current market conditions. Obviously, market conditions shift over time, but it's a long-term shift. It's not going to happen overnight.
No, I think we'll still be talking about this in 2025.
So there's three options I said for buying a Specialized online, right? And of those three options, ship to home, Specialized delivery, and in-store pickup, which goes to the bike shop. Which of those options is the most expensive? Because there's an additional fee, right?
For each.
Okay, yeah. So there's three different fees.
Obviously, delivered to your house and assembled in front of you,
Okay, that's the most expensive.
Yeah.
Guess which one's the cheapest option?
shipped to the store.
Right. You would think the $60 to just ship directly to your house, $75 for a Specialized representative to come
That's a
and
deal
build
and
it
a
for
half.
you. Yeah,
That's a
but,
deal and a
but I
half.
feel bad for the bike shop that only gets $50 for building.
I
But
think
they already have a line of communication.
Well,
there.
that's true.
I think that's marketing pricing more than anything, because the reality is it costs more than any of those just to ship. It costs more than $60 to ship a box to a bike box to a
Yeah,
house.
it's $100 easy.
So I think that's just pricing to try to encourage one choice over the other.
Oh, actually, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. They're
Maybe
trying
they
to drive you to the shop.
yeah, that's great then. I
Yeah.
retract my statement.
yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But $75, it doesn't say it's a bike fit, but still $75 to have someone, an actual dealer mechanic come to your house
It would be
with a bike is not, it's
But
not a bad
assembling a
price.
high-end bike nowadays, unless they have internal cable routing that goes through the stem and all that
Yeah.
fancy shit, they come
That's
almost
almost
pre-assembled.
Well, that's almost always pre-assembled.
Yeah.
That's the way Canyon does their stuff on a lot of bikes right now. So it comes in a funky box and funky configuration for that now, sort of thing. Is my understanding.
If I'm buying a $12,000 bike, I'm having a pro assemble it.
If you're buying a $12,000 bike, Jesus, you probably have a mechanic on hand.
Yeah.
I mean, they tried really hard to make that $10,000 to $12,000 bike the next realistic standard a couple years back.
That's crazy.
The-
I mean, I don't even think e-bikes are that expensive. What is the most expensive e-bike going right now?
Well, and they aren't right now, but they were getting up to 8 to 10 a couple years ago at the peak of the COVID bullshit.
Yeah. But I mean, still a high-end road bike or mountain bike, you can spend $15K on one.
Sure.
I mean, if you go nuts, and I'm not even talking about custom. I'm not talking about buying.
Well,
a
I mean, the
frame
reason
and
the reason the e-bikes aren't at that level yet is because they're kind of where we started with this. The market at this level of cycling isn't there yet for
build it up.
e-bikes across the board. A lot of the eMTB purchasers over the past few years fall into two categories: brand new cyclists that start with the $4,000 eMTB, $5,000 eMTB, or established cyclists that don't, for whatever reasons, injury, age, profession, don't have the time to devote to maintain the fitness to ride at the levels they used to ride before.
Yeah.
That's kind of the high-end market right now for e-bikes, and the high-end market for the most part is eMTB from what I've seen.
I take that back. Here's an S-Works Turbo Levo SL LTD, $15K.
Yeah, but they sell 3 of them a year nationwide.
I would be willing to bet they sell far more than 3, but maybe not. I mean, obviously not in this area, but
They don't sell a lot of them. I guarantee you that.
yeah.
But it's again, that's a marketing piece. You want to show off stuff like that too.
Sure.
Oh well, So this $10,000 bike's a bargain because it doesn't have the titanium carbon lace spoke nipples,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Whereas they do have a e road bike too, but
And that's again, I think the takeoff point for e-bikes at our traditional level of looking at bikes, I'm still sticking to when that 100-mile range, realistic 100-mile range, is in the mix somehow or another. That's when it'll take off. And
yeah.
yes, 100 miles is kind of arbitrary, but it definitely can't be under 100K. It has to be at least 60 to 75 miles of realistic day in, day out, don't have to worry about it potential.
Yeah. Oh, shit. They have 12 different road bikes, road bikes.
And what's the general price range?
Looks like 4,500 up to about 14K. Yeah, 4,500 is the cheapest one, and then 14,000 is the most expensive. The S-Works Turbo Creo 2. That's wild. I don't see a world where I don't end up on an e-bike, and it scares me.
Don't be scared. Don't be scared.
Scared. I don't want to drink the Kool-Aid.
Embrace change.
I know.
Specialized has a $18,000 e-bike.
Oh,
So,
I missed
hey,
it.
there's looking forward to that.
I don't think there's very many people that actually buy those highest level bikes. It's more marketing than anything. It's more branding than anything.
Here's the thing. I went. My son is in the process of getting a new motorcycle, which I'm not a fan of.
I'm not a fan.
yeah.
I'm not a fan.
But
Gauge.
But we got rid of the old motorcycle, which was step one. And then he's going to get his motorcycle endorsement in Texas this next week. But we went to get him a new helmet yesterday, out running around and stuff. And I was looking at motorcycles, and I'm like, you can get them.
You can get a really nice motorcycle for $6,000.
Yeah, for $6,000, $10K, you can get a badass motorcycle. And I'm like,
oh, trust me, I'm going to buy a dual sport motorcycle before I buy a $10,000 e-bike.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, they have a KTM Adventure 790 that's used, that has bags and everything. And I think I could have got out of there for less than $10K on that thing. And that I could do everything and anything I want on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas, when I'm on a trail, I don't know. I'm still
but
struggling with the whole...
you can't take it to single track.
No, and I wouldn't want to.
No, I understand.
I wouldn't want to, but I would like to reach out my adventure.
I mean, I would have a blast doing our Butterfield route on a dual sport. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Man, that would be a fun trip.
We could rent a motorcycle and do that. Have you watched any of the Ewan McGregor
Yeah.
series?
Yeah.
I just started them,
Okay.
but for some reason they never showed up on my radar. But,
Interesting.
Yeah, but
I would expect that to be right in your wheelhouse.
I started watching it, and it's
I
good
think
stuff.
the first one's the best one myself.
That's the one I'm watching. Yeah, the original
Yeah.
idea and how they kind of came to it, and
When we
But-
came out of the grocery store there in Terlingua, got a little momentary jealousy of those guys that were on those.
yeah.
I don't know what kind of bikes. What do you call those?
Adventure bikes.
Yeah. half,
Yeah.
half touring, half motocross.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a dual sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those guys had been through it too because those bikes
yeah.
were dirty. They were
Oh
dirty.
yeah.
Yeah. They were-
Now, the reality is you can do much more on a bicycle than you can on those.
but your range is a lot.
Your
less.
oh god, yeah. Well,
I mean,
actually-
those guys can cover 600-700 miles a day.
they can.
Yeah.
They can.
What's a long day?
That's
Yeah,
a
it
long a 200-mile day is super long for
Yeah.
them as it is. I mean,
Well, I mean, it also depends on the terrain.
Well,
Like if you're just out cruising gravel roads,
yeah,
you can just burn them down.
it's still a long day.
Yeah.
It's still a long day. And Gage, when I'm busting your chops about getting a motorcycle, I ride motorcycles. I've been riding motorcycles for years. I refuse to ride motorcycles anymore.
Well, the beautiful thing about what happened yesterday is Paula is the biggest resistor to the motorcycle thing because she's Mama Bear and
Sure,
all that.
sure,
and,
sure.
But so she actually went with us because we were just going to go run a bunch of errands, and she came in. Despite Gage saying, just sit in the car because he didn't
Yeah.
want to hear about it.
He didn't want to deal with it. I understand.
But the guy that owned the place that we went to picked up on all of that and said, hey, look, I know you're worried, but here's what you need to think about. And he starts telling her, sport bikes have better brakes. They're lighter. They're easier to handle. And he said, but the most important thing that you need to focus on is getting him on a track day, getting him proper training to ride.
Get the
Yeah.
skill set established.
Get the skill set established and also put him in an environment where it's much safer to go fast.
Yeah.
And relegate his need for speed to a closed environment.
Okay, and that's
And it was she came out feeling a lot better.
yeah, and I will beat that drum every day.
Yeah.
We probably see in the news around here. It used to be every day, and maybe they don't report it as much, but there was almost always a motorcycle fatality a day around here. And I am one of those that the vast majority is the motorcyclists doing stupid shit. Is the vast majority of those. Yeah. That said, I was never a public roads motorcycle rider that was prone to do stupid shit on the road. And I've been nearly taken out probably a half a dozen times, and two of them were police officers.
Oh wow!
I had an uncle that was almost killed, and then I personally witnessed a pretty awful wreck, literally right, 15, 20 feet in front of me, and nope,
Yeah,
completely 100% against it.
So I don't begrudge anyone. If you're riding motorcycles, I'm not knocking you for doing it. I'm saying my choice is I choose not to.
Yeah.
I think it's the closest thing a human can feel to flying without jumping out of a plane.
Yeah, especially when you hit the back end of a pickup truck and it launches you over the hood.
Yeah.
You will fly. I saw it.
Yeah,
Sorry, don't mean to laugh at
the
that.
worst carnage I've ever seen was from a motorcycle.
Let's not go there. Let's not go there. You're bringing the house down.
I'm sorry.
No, I think I started that.
But it's much like cycling, though. You said you won't ride a motorcycle on the road. Like if I was going to get a motorcycle, it would be for the express desire to ride on gravel and like rugged stuff.
But like we know, you can't get to the gravel without taking pavement.
No, I know. I mean,
and that's
you still have to have connectors.
I mean, I prior to the Jeep, prior to my truck, I had a short window where I had a dual sport motorcycle as a Ministry Scouting mobile.
What'd you have?
It was one of those.
Remember it.
It was one of those Chinese enduro bikes. It was like I want to say it was a $2,000 bike.
Yeah.
250 cc, but I mean, it did what I wanted it to do.
Yeah.
It did what I needed it to do. And it's like everything else. Like when my first single speed, I built up my cheap Academy sports bike into a single speed to try out single speeding,
Right.
and then I would make the investment down the road if it's something I like.
Right.
And that was kind of the idea. It's like I hadn't been on a motorcycle in 20, years,
Yeah.
30 years maybe. It's like, well, let me see if I still got what it takes, see what is. And as far as riding on the dirt roads, it's a fantastic way to scout. Had a friggin' blast.
Oh, I'm sure.
But getting to those dirt roads or
Yeah.
those segments that, well, I got to join particularly when you're scouting, when we lay out a route, we try to minimize those pavement sections, always try to keep it to 1.5 miles or less,
Yeah.
ideally a
Yeah.
mile or less. But when you're scouting, sometimes you have to knock out 6, 8, 15 miles of pavement to get to the next dirt stretch.
Right.
And that was my big takeaway from it. I mean, I even it was a 250cc motorcycle, so I had the motorcycle rack on the back of the car, truck, or whatever I was driving at the time that I could haul it from place to place. So I didn't have to do a lot of interstate traffic
Yeah.
with that bike or anything like that. There were a couple of times I did, and it's like, I don't want to do that no more.
Yeah.
But I would haul it from start point to start point, and even then, just the short stretches of back road pavement that I had, invariably I wouldn't have a trip without a close call of some sort.
Yeah.
And that was me being just super cautious. And I doubt the bike got over 60 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
But is that part of the problem too? Is you didn't have enough get up and go?
No, because I wasn't. It's the classic. You're going down the road and somebody just pulls out in front of you. What
Yeah.
the hell are you going to do at that point?
Yeah.
Get up and go. It's all brakes at that point or all maneuvering, one or
Yeah.
the other.
Well, like when I was at Unbound, I was jealous of the guys, much like Caleb's talking about, the guys that they go out and run the course. You know whether they're running support or
Sure. Sure.
sag or just clean up or sweep or whatever. But I was like, man, that's got to be a fun way to do that course. And those roads up there, like if I lived up there, I would
Yeah.
totally have a motorcycle, like a dual sport, adventure bike, and just go burn up gravel roads. That'd just be so much fun because it's just never ending gravel up there. So
It does wear you out though. It really does, because there's a big difference about riding
they're working just as hard as you are.
marbled gravel roads, 15, 20 miles an hour on a bicycle, and then you try to do it at 30 miles an hour on a motorcycle.
Yeah. What if it's freshly graded though?
We've had a lot of the dual sport folks that have latched onto spinistry routes over the years.
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty familiar with what those riders typically do in a day.
Uh-huh.
And 50 miles of gravel is a lot for them, believe it or not.
Really?
I mean, don't get me wrong. There's guys and gals.
Yeah.
There's riders out there that do the 200, 300 mile days.
Yeah.
But the 80% rule of 80% of the people that have dual sport bikes that occasionally take it out and get it dirty. 50 to 100 miles of dirt is a lot for them.
Huh.
But it's, again,
I wouldn't have thought that, but I have no clue.
it's a skill set to establish.
Sure.
And it's also one of those things, when you riding your bicycle on it, you have a better idea of what riding on those types of roads would be on a motorcycle than a lot of motorcycle riders would. I guess is the best way to put it.
That makes sense.
It's hard to get that experience without doing it. But if you start doing it, it's very uncomfortable. It's like anything new you try to pick up.
Did you guys watch the Lachlan Morton's new Divide video?
No.
I have not watched it yet. I've heard about it in general.
It's on Netflix, right?
It's on YouTube.
It's YouTube, I
Yeah,
believe.
It's under the EF Pro cycling channel. I like him. I've met him. He's a nice guy. I'm going to watch anything he's in. And he's typically been in some pretty incredible, like all of the thereabouts videos are absolutely insane. They're so good.
I don't guess I know what we're talking about.
Okay.
This is the guy that he did it earlier, or he did it in 2023 with the sleep schedule. right?
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
If you haven't seen the Thereabouts and then after they sold the production to Rafa, they renamed it, and I can't remember the name, but it's on the Rafa channel. Anyway, it's not the best documentary he's been in, but the interesting thing is as I'm watching it, because it came out last week.
So this is about his Divide effort.
Yeah.
Okay.
They filmed it. His
Yeah.
brother Angus, who they started the Thereabouts.
They started
Yes.
AC/DC, right?
Yes. They're dual sport.
How's Angus's neck these days?
Okay, so watching this, I already knew the outcome, right? I
Sure,
knew that he
sure.
broke the record. But what I'm sitting there thinking halfway through is like, wait a minute, why didn't he catch the same flack that Lyle Wilcox did for
Right.
essentially doing the exact same thing? Here's where I have a lot of respect. At the end of the video, it recognizes it. There's a line that says, "We recognize the." I don't remember the full
My
the
call.
wording.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically,
No, okay.
still saying my call still basically
Yeah.
owns record.
We-
They recognize that they did have a film crew out there, and under the
Spirit of the
exactly, they're not considering it the official.
right.
So, which I thought that was pretty classy on their part, because if they had done that and then
So
not,
he was just proving it, but not making it.
Yeah, his-
not making
his
it
goal-
official.
He wasn't proving anything except to himself, right?
Yeah.
the
That's what I'm
proof
saying,
was,
though.
can I do this
Yeah.
with a required self-required sleep schedule?
Yeah.
That was it. If I break the record, great. If
Yeah.
not, I want to see if I can
See what it looks like.
But we want to film it. The filming and the sleep portion of it, the
Yeah.
experimental portion, is more important than the actual record.
I mean,
breaking.
yeah. And that's why I haven't watched this yet, because, I mean, all that stuff's in my wheelhouse, and I think you guys have heard me talk about it before. I'm not against the sleeping in the ditch efforts. I'm not. If people want to do that, but I'm also not going to encourage it. I would encourage those
Yeah.
types of efforts
Well,
very
Texas
much.
is
so.
not the best place to sleep where you want.
I get that. So that's my responsibility to set it up so you can.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of which, I was reading a book. I know it sounds weird. I was
Did
reading.
it have pictures?
Yes, Jason.
It does has a lot of pictures, and it said that there is no federal land in Texas. I did not know that.
No. Texas has the least federal land.
Says-
There's like 3% of the.
There's zero BLM style land.
Yeah, but it said that there's no.
the national forest, that's federal land. The Caddo National Grasslands, that's federal land. So there is federal
Maybe I
land.
misread it. I think it's state, isn't it?
No.
No.
Sam Houston National Forest.
Oh, okay. Maybe I misread
LBJ
that.
National Grasslands.
Maybe I must have misread that.
No, you would never misread anything.
I'm go back and look at it. I'll take a screenshot and send it to
Okay.
you.
Okay.
'cause I thought
what
it
was
was
your
super
source?
interesting.
What was your source to begin with? What were you looking at referencing?
It's a book that came out in 2021. It's all about Texas whiskey and distilleries and how we're so new to the game, and how Texas has already winning awards on whiskeys. And it's a great freaking book so far. But it highlights all of the whiskey distilleries
So
in Texas.
how does national lands come into play in that book?
He was just talking about, he's just like kind of building the picture of what Texas is about and what Texans are about, and how the spirit of Texas plays into the way that we entered into the whiskey market, and how Texas whiskey started, the forefathers of Texas whiskey. I mean, Texas whiskey is only like in the neighborhood of like 14, 15 years old at this point.
I think
know?
I think that's true of the industry in general, though, of the outside of the traditional Kentucky, Tennessee
Yeah.
type stuff.
But this is specifically about Texas.
No, I
whiskey
understand. I
and
understand. I'm just saying that time frame. That's when
stuff.
the craft, the micro distillery, nationwide stuff kind of took off.
It's a really good book, though. I mean, I've just now started. I've got through the North Texas region, which he basically, you know, after a very long forward and discussion about the evolution and introduction of Texas whiskey and who the forefathers were and the first distillers and, you know, where they are now and all this stuff. Then they start going by region and just talking about individual distilleries. And Iron Root, which is the one we drove by in Denison the other day. I really want to go visit that. The irony is I'm reading this book and I'm in the middle of dry January. So
When did that take effect?
January 2nd. I
Okay.
can't start it on the 1st.
I was about to
Yeah.
say that would be tough.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a house full on January 1st. That was so much fun. But no, I did the same thing last year. had January 1st, New Year's Day.
Is
here
dry
at the house.
is dry alcohol only?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because everything else is already dry.
I'm just
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just verifying because I've heard both versions.
Oh, no, mine's just alcohol.
Okay.
I need a break from alcohol.
Okay. Perfectly fine.
So,
No judgment here.
but
just-
I'll also take the first day of February as well because,
that makes it a full month.
yeah.
Understood.
And I may continue after that. I don't know. We'll see. But, and the other irony is I have 2 bottles of whiskey getting delivered today that I ordered like at the beginning of December.
I'm glad I didn't go get that $200 whiskey for you.
Whatever. I still want a bottle of that, but it's impossible to find. Enough about whiskey. Who else is going to fall victim to what Niner's going through and everything? I mean, I think it's going to be a series of dominoes, in my opinion. But you feel like we've already hit the floor, huh?
I think we've hit the floor on pricing. I don't think we've hit the floor on. I'm not going to say. I'm not saying they're going out of business.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might be too extreme.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Canyon's about to go into a very rough time.
Yeah.
I mean, they're already in a rough time.
It feels like they've been grabbing at straws for the better part of 2 years, anyways. And I know COVID is obviously a factor, but it just
actually
seems
COVID was the best thing that ever happened to Canyon.
Yeah, but
on the front end of it,
just
anyway.
seems like they just keep changing things up and trying everything they possibly can. But Canyon's also not a company that's not scared to try weird shit. Like they have what's their proprietary technology they have built into their top tube that they open sourced that essentially centers your steering? Have you seen this?
New to me. I'm not familiar with that one. But I mean, they've thrown a lot of stuff against the wall that hasn't stuck. I mean, that gravel bar of theirs? It's not around anymore, right?
I thought it was super cool. I never put hands on it, but I thought it was really cool.
I think in the spirit of experimenting and real world user testing, I thought it was a good idea.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm not knocking it.
Oh no, I know. I'm saying, yeah, it didn't work. They found out. I guess that's how you.
Yeah, but that's what I was saying. They're not scared to try.
No, they're
different
not.
Shit.
It was,
know?
everyone scoffed at it at first, but then after a couple of months,
It got
was
them a
like,
lot of attention.
maybe.
It got them a
That's
lot.
the thing. Yeah.
So again, I'm never gonna knock marketing.
Yeah.
And then you. I mean, how many times have I brought it up just in today's conversation? Ultimately, marketing is what it all is. People treat marketing like it's a bad word. That's how you're aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
The only creative stuff has to be done to make it register in the consumer's mind to begin with. Just because it registers in someone's mind doesn't mean it's brainwashing them. It means now they're aware, and when they make their decision down the road, they remember to keep this option in mind.
Right. Yeah.
During that decision-making process. I think a lot of the stuff Canyon has done a fantastic job of making the market aware of them.
Yeah.
I think the last year specifically has been more of them grasping at straws at trying to find ways to maintain the market. Or, again, how many of these companies had to commit to what's turned into 5 years worth of inventory when they thought it was going to be 6 months worth of inventory?
Yeah, that's a fair point. But the other thing that I'm trying to keep in mind too is that bikes and brands tend to be regional almost. Like
That I think that's a fundamental shift over the past few years because of these direct to consumer bikes.
But I think like you realize like at one point, Niner was huge here in the DFW area. Like you wouldn't go anywhere without seeing people on Niners.
Sure.
And then, Yeti was huge at one point. And
Sure.
then everybody was on Pivot. And then now I see a lot of everything at this point, but there's you can't just like pin it down.
That's
at this point.
That's what I'm saying. That's that fundamental shift in the market over the past 10 years. It used to be the Dallas Bike Works, the Mad Ducks, the Colonels, the Velos.
They kind of dictated what people were on.
They had to do their marketing to get people interested in Niner or Visago
I forgot about Visago.
whatever else.
Yeah.
And those brands were what differentiated them from each other. And so if Boyd did a fantastic job of marketing
Visago,
Pivot or whatever,
yeah,
and Clarence did a fantastic job of marketing Allied or Yeti or whatever else, that was their bread and butter.
Mm-hmm.
That model doesn't work the way it used to. There's still something to it, but it just like you said, it used to be that the local bike shops drove the local interest in certain brands.
Yeah.
That doesn't work to that extent anymore, and so and that's why a lot of these bike companies have gone consumer direct. But once companies that were traditional have gone to consumer, there's a lot of other companies now that come in that have never done anything but consumer direct.
Yeah.
And that's the huge shift in the market. And we kind of got caught up in the middle of all that when Loft came out.
They're consumer direct too, right?
They are now.
Oh, they are now. Okay.
So
That's not how they started?
No.
Okay.
That same conversation. They started out, man, what year? 17 probably?
Sounds right. 16, 17.
17 Red River Riot. Boyd doing that thing. Boyd and Dallas Bike Works had the first association with Loft.
Mm-hmm.
And they reached out to me and said, hey, would you be interested in helping us promote this brand? I said, yeah, that's really cool. I'm familiar with the bikes, and I think that's really neat. And then that same day, I show up at Mad Duck, talk to Clarence, and he's like, hey, I just picked up this new brand, Loft.
Mm-hmm.
And so, hey, this is cool. I get to help out Boyd and Clarence. That was my perception of it.
Well, Loft started, though, they started with just the fork, right?
Yeah.
And then the bike company came after.
Yeah, the bike company came after, and they started with a gravel bike as far as full bikes go, the True Grit.
Yeah.
And so we had set up where Boyd was going to do a big Loft demo at Red River Riot that year.
Mm-hmm.
And Benedict from Loft came over. And so he arranged for everything. They had an Austin set up for another dealer down there, and Benedict was really impressed with the Red River Riot and the grassroots gravel scene we had going. So we put together this fantastic Club Spinistry Loft deal in conjunction with the dealers.
Yeah.
And it was like that was right at the time when maybe within 12 months the whole industry just kind of turned upside down.
Yeah.
And the way Loft was doing things with the dealers wasn't working the way the industry was going, and they had to shift to consumer direct.
You think they were too early or too late?
To shift to consumer direct?
No, I mean with the way they were trying to market at that time.
That was the tail end of coming into the dealer networks that way with a brand new platform like that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't their fault, and it wasn't the dealer's fault. That was a market shift that was going on for various reasons. And I mean, part of it goes back to you can throw the Bentonville and the Walmart group stuff into the mix as well. People don't recognize how much of a shift all of that consolidation of the bike industry into that investment group. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it as a negative or a positive. It's a fundamental shift in the equation right now. That group, Rafa, Allied, all that Bentonville stuff.
Yeah.
I can't even remember all the brands.
Rafa's owned by Walmart now,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
And Backcountry is owned by Walmart.
Competitive Cyclists, and that's a huge mover. Just a lot of fundamental shifts that have come for a multitude of reasons that at first don't look like they're linked, but they are. But I'm not saying it's a big conspiracy of, well, we're shifting things. No, it's just the industry has fundamentally changed in realistically the past 10 years for numerous reasons. And it's the biggest struggle within that is the traditional bike shop. It's never been easy to make a living doing that. It's even harder now. I mean, in the old days, what the bike shops had going against them is that it wasn't business people that were running them. It was bike riders that were running them.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like it's the same as working with artists, generally speaking. And I know Caleb can relate to this. There's business-oriented artists, which are maybe 20% of the artists, and there's every other artist that's out there that's creative as hell and fantastic and super talented. They don't understand business.
Well, I had a drawing and painting scholarship and switched in the middle of college because I realized it finally dawned on me it's very difficult to make a living and to support a family being a fine artist. So I shifted into the business end.
I mean, you can be the most talented son of a bitch in the world.
If it's only if someone's willing to buy your paintings.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
And they're not going to. You have to be able to conform as a creator towards what the market wants, at least to a significant extent. You don't have to sell out completely, but you got to cater to the market.
In my experience, the UX, UI designers, the graphic designers, the ones that are most successful, the ones that understand the business the best. Yeah. Not just going out there and doing their thing because I'm doing art, Mom.
Yeah.
You can't go into that mindset.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, going back to the Grail handlebars. I did not know this. So the Grail Generation 1 had the double decker.
Yeah.
The Grail Generation 2 has the double drop, which is it's bowed at the top. So you kind of get the benefit of a higher. If you're riding on the tops, you're at a normal height.
Let me get back.
But if you go into the drops, you're actually a little lower in a little more race geometry.
Okay.
So it's slightly bowed, but it's still their proprietary steam integration, which I think that probably hurt them on the double decker. You know, maybe you eliminated the possibility of someone putting it on their other bike. Buying it separate.
And I'm no expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I have yet to see anybody successfully expand integrated seat posts or integrated stems. That's almost always seemed to have been a stumbling block for just about any bike that goes out there that goes that route. Because the reality is, even people with the highest budgets and the best bike fitters, they want to change it up.
Options. You want options. Well, I mean, you line up our bikes that we do on Sunday Rambles, and from a distance, they kind of look the same. But if you get up close, like you can tell whose bike is whose based on just personal preferences. There's a lot of differences there.
Yeah. So they still have the double decker then, huh?
Yeah, I think it's in limited. But you checked to buy the bike.
I still think it's a pretty neat concept. I don't know about actual application.
I like the idea of the new one better because you get the benefit of both without having that extra bar in the way. Yeah.
I can't get a good picture of it, but
I don't think the bow from the top is significant, but it's probably like, think about adding one or two spacers.
Yeah.
For your bars, raising it up and lowering it down. It kind of gives you the in between. You can get the really, really low geometry and position in the drops. Or if you want to sit up, now you're back to where it would be if you had a couple.
But why not just run a shallower sweep? I mean, a shallower drop, you know?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, they're on to something that we're not thinking about, I think.
Yeah. I would just run a bar that has a shallower drop.
Yeah. So the unfortunate thing, I would be interested in trying it, but too bad it's a proprietary system. So
Yep.
So I can't. So we can't.
Again, that's another downside to the consumer direct model. And I mean, let's go back to Loft. I'm on the Loft owners group or the Loft buyers group or whatever else. And that's I see it so often, even though Loft has the 30-day money back guarantee, it fits or we take it back, whatever they have. Mm-hmm. I mean, the conversation that comes up 5 times a day in that group is, well, I have it in the cart ready to pull the trigger, but I just want to make sure it fits. Is anybody within 300 miles of such and such that has this bike that I can sit on? And it's like,
that's the benefit of a local bike shop.
Well, but even, I mean, if the local bike shop has the Canyon handlebar on a demo bike, you can go out and try it, sort of thing. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's very rare that there's an actual demo bike to use these days at any of the local shops like there used to be.
Yeah.
But I think that's a fundamentally missing piece for the market, that it requires that local presence. And I still say there's a next iteration that combines the two that makes sense, but we haven't seen what that is yet. Because I think it is counterproductive for people to be buying high-end bikes that they're not happy with.
Well, yeah. I mean, how do you buy a bike sight unseen? You know?
That's the market now, though.
Yeah, it's silly. Like bikes and knives aren't the same thing, but I have a hard time buying a knife that I don't get to hold first.
Sure.
Don't get to run on.
You got to feel the balance. You got to feel the heft.
So I mean, now I did jump out and buy a knife just from a production company that is now like my go-to knife, and when I get tired of it, I'm going to buy another one.
Ooh.
So
do you have an old knife I could play with?
Yeah, I have
that stuff.
Hundreds of knives. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. It's the same thing. Like knives are very personal too. Like you could line up 10 chefs, and I guarantee you, all 10 of them have a different go-to knife.
Which they should.
Yeah. I mean, and much like bikes, at one point, this was my favorite knife, and then I moved to this knife, and I'm like, why did I ever use this? Because, it's just your desires and your understanding change, and you kind of change the way you navigate stuff, I mean, I used to use a much bigger knife, and now I use I think it's a 9-inch chef's knife, and I mean, I have a 12-inch chef's knife, So, I mean, but you're just like bikes, It's not technology hasn't changed in knives, really. I mean, slightly, but not near what the bike market has. But your tastes change. So,
All right. Well, I got a return text, so I'm going to throw out a Spinistry plug out there.
do that.
So, just got word back from the city of Paris, Texas. Anyone listening to this, if you haven't yet made plans for Monday, April 8th, are you guys familiar with Monday, April 8th?
No.
Sounds like it might be the first Monday of April. Or
That would actually be the second.
The second, if April 1st is a Monday.
Monday, April 8th, we're actually having a total solar eclipse blowing through Texas.
Okay.
And not just any, this is true blue totality and a super long black totality.
Mm-hmm.
And
Can we look at this one?
yes,
Okay.
very much so. Now, you still want the glasses as it goes towards totality, but once you're in totality, you can take the glasses off. I want to say this something ridiculous. Is it 4 minutes or more?
Wow.
Which is ridiculous. I went to the last one, I think also in 17. Drove to Nebraska for that one for 1.5 minutes of totality. And that was amazing. I can only imagine what 4 minutes of totality is going to be like. Anyway.
Sounds like my wedding night.
Sounds like an eclipse that Bonnie Tyler would.
That was the 1.5 minute one for me.
Sounds like an eclipse that Bonnie Tyler would be proud of.
Total eclipse of the heart. And that's what the ride's called.
Yeah.
Is it?
So is the ride going to be going on during the eclipse?
So we will be staging from the Love Civic Center in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
And as a point of reference, rooms at the Motel 6 in Paris for that weekend are going for $380 a night right now.
That's insane.
What's going on?
An
Oh,
eclipse.
because of that.
The eclipse.
Because of that.
People
Okay.
are traveling from all over the world, literally.
So we can camp at the fairground.
Camping's not verified yet. We're working on that. Hopefully that does come together. Now, the reality is this will be maybe further. Dallas will be totality as well. But it's like that. It's like 90 seconds of it there. Our ride goes to Clarksville, which is just dead center, right in the path. So it's like maximum totality you can get, and then we'll ride back to Paris. Is the idea? But the point is, if you've never experienced a total eclipse, anyone else listening to this, you don't have to make your arrangements to join our ministry ride. We'd love to have you. Make a point to April 8th, set up 2 or 3 locations and plan to be in Texas, Arkansas, wherever it's going through, and experience this eclipse. If you've never experienced a total eclipse, you have to. It's absolutely astounding. It's life-changing. It's just one of those things. If you haven't done, and no, just seeing it get a little bit darker or whatever, no. You have to be in that path of totality. Make those arrangements. So Paris is our plan A. Obviously, it's weather dependent.
Mm-hmm.
If it's raining or cloudy, it doesn't work.
Somebody told me weather's always a factor.
Weather is always a factor.
Yeah.
I've heard that somewhere.
Sounds familiar.
But we'll also have a plan B towards the south. If north weather's bad, we'll have a plan B to the south, at least for this ministry ride aspect of it. But I encourage anyone else, make those same sort of arrangements. Look at the totality map. Find some spots you can get to. Pick out something that's your plan A and pick out something that's 200 or 300 miles away for your plan B in case plan A weather's bad.
What time of day is the
totality?
totality?
I want to say it's like 1:30 in the afternoon.
Okay. So what would the ride structure be like?
The current, so that would be currently the concept is just take the net there.
Okay.
Ride the net from Paris to Clarksville at a very leisurely pace, a rambly sort of pace. But there's a ton of fantastic dirt roads around there as well. Mm-hmm. And then, so we'll probably put together multiple options, the direct ride the net, or people that want to do adventurous and, hey, let me knock out 75 miles, then get to the park in Clarksville that we're watching this from. We'll probably have some ministry chow on site is kind of the idea.
So that's the goal, is to arrive in Clarksville and then take in the eclipse.
Yep.
Okay.
And then ride back to Paris one way or another.
Okay.
Remind me how far that is.
I want to say via the net, it's maybe 45 miles.
Okay. That's what I remembered, but I wasn't for sure.
That's a guess at the moment. I haven't laid out the routes yet, so I'll look at now that we're official with the city.
Well, I'm excited. That sounds cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're excited. We're hopefully we're going to throw some camping in the mix too. If nothing else, we'll figure out some sort of, because realistically, it's 45 miles away, so we don't have to take off at 6 o'clock in the morning, sort of thing.
Yeah. Unless you're Raj Connie. Did you see that guy's stats for this year?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. Did he go north of 10,000?
20,000.
Jeez.
This is his fourth year in a row, I think, if I remember correctly.
But his streak was broken.
His streak was broken.
755?
Yeah, because he had to get on a plane.
That guy is...
He's a monster.
He is an animal.
Monster.
Well, we can fit about, 12 people in your camper? 2 men in a one-man tent?
That many people in my camper, I will be sleeping outside. There's no ifs, ands, or I'll probably be sleeping on top of the camper at that point or underneath it.
Well, it really depends on what the weather's like. April could be beautiful, or it could be miserable.
So if we get camping, it'll be covered camping because we have the pavilion.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And that's what we use for the rat.
Yeah.
So
can I string up a hammock?
You can figure out. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. A guy was doing
do it under the bleachers.
A guy had to go off into the woods to figure out how to string up a hammock, but it can be done.
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
I think right there right off the bathrooms. I don't know if that's a rodeo or a softball arena. I can't remember, but there's metal bleachers. I bet you could string it up there.
Oh yeah.
So keep an eye on the Ministry Facebook page and Instagram. We'll start sharing more details on that now that we're official. If we get camping sorted out, we'll let folks know. But again, even if you're not planning on joining us, if you haven't seen an eclipse, make a point to do that. Put in your time off request right now. Start making travel arrangements. Everything in Texas is booked. If you're trying to rent an Airbnb, a hotel room, and all that's in the path of totality has been booked for months. But if you have friends that you can stay with or whatever else, or you're willing to drive several hundred miles, stay outside the path of totality and plan to drive 200 miles at an angle one way or the other the next day, sort of thing. That'll work as well. It's worth it. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Well, I just got excited about something I didn't even know I was excited about.
I like getting you excited.
I'm interested.
Anything else, gents?
I think I'm good.
Shall we?
Yeah.